AITA for letting my wife go to jail for secretly giving our baby to her sister? I'm a 26-year-old man, and I met my wife, Jessica, who is also 26, when we were both in high school. We were classmates assigned to a history project together, so we started spending time after school at each other's houses. During this time, we had the opportunity to get to know our respective families better. Our backgrounds are quite different. I grew up in a typical suburban family with my mom, dad, and brother, which was solidly middle class thanks to my dad's career in the military. On the other hand, my wife's family had its own struggles. Her parents separated when she was young, and apparently, her father had a difficult and damaging relationship with her older sister, Megan. Despite the separation, my wife lived with both her mother and father under a joint custody arrangement until she was a teenager. Megan lived primarily with her mother, and while their relationship was complicated, it wasn't like the one with her father. Instead, it seemed her father struggled to set boundaries and guide her properly. Jessica told me early on that her older sister Megan, who is 30, always resented her for having a better relationship with their father. It is hard for me to write this, but Megan is exactly as her father was described. She went out of her way to torment everyone around her, and my wife suffered the worst of it. Megan went to great lengths to make Jessica's life difficult. She would make fun of Jessica's outfits or her hairstyle in the high school hallways. Every time I came over to see Jessica, I saw Megan play almost cruel pranks on her, like locking Jessica in the bathroom and turning off the lights while Jessica cried for help, as she was afraid of dark spaces. If Jessica received more birthday gifts from her friends, Megan would get angry and cut up the new clothes she had received. One time, I remember Jessica coming to school looking like a mess, trying to hide her hair with a beanie. She had always had long, blonde hair, so when I asked her what happened, she burst into tears and told me how Megan had mixed hair dye into her shampoo, and she had to cut her hair short to save what she could. It was heartbreaking to see her like that. Megan's envy seemed to have no limits, and Jessica suffered the worst of it too often. I could not understand how someone could be so cruel to their own sister. To me, it was clear that their relationship was toxic, but Jessica always seemed to make excuses for Megan's behavior, saying she was just going through a hard time. I always hoped that Jessica would eventually realize her worth as a person and step away from Megan's toxicity. Her mother, Lori, did nothing to help Jessica through all of this. My wife was always unfairly compared to her older sister. According to Jessica, her mother always said her older sister was prettier, smarter, more talented, kinder, more popular, and simply better at everything. As a result, my wife became a dedicated student growing up, trying to earn her mother's approval. Her mother, Lori, always told her to improve her grades, even though Jessica had a 4.0 GPA and was one of the best in our class. Lori would ground Jessica severely if she brought home anything less than an A. When we were working on our project at her house, Lori would get too close and try to give her input, telling us how we could improve our project even though we were supposed to do it without our parents' help. Lori asked me questions to find out if Jessica behaved well at school or if she was truly a good student. I felt very uncomfortable because I did not know Jessica well at the time, and finding myself in the middle of all that was not pleasant. I guess that is when I subconsciously started defending Jessica. I would tell her mother, every time I came over, that Jessica had done something great in class, like acing a test or giving a great presentation, while Jessica just smiled and blushed. Instead of praising her daughter, her mother would say things like, Jessica has a lot of room for improvement, and that she needed to get better to stand out. When Jessica and I realized our feelings for each other, she was extremely afraid that Megan and her mother would find out. Looking back, I was too young to see how controlled she was. She tried to hide our relationship as much as she could, like not texting me once Lori got home from work, deleting our message threads every night, and not holding my hand in public for fear that Megan would see us. When prom was coming up in a few months, I asked her to go with me, but Jessica was afraid to say yes. Being an ignorant teenager, I was fed up with her and her restrictions. I told her quite bluntly that if she did not go with me to prom, then I was going to break up with her because I had enough of all this hiding. This reduced Jessica to tears, and she confessed to me that she was afraid her mother and Megan would try to ruin our relationship because they had a tendency to take away all the good things in her life. I felt really bad at that moment. Finally, Jessica decided to tell her mother about our relationship. Megan threw a huge temper tantrum because Jessica had a boyfriend before her and started yelling that she had to break up with me. She told her she was not good enough, so I was going to break up with her anyway. Therefore, it was better if she did it first. This made Jessica cry a lot, and she was insecure with me for a long time, thinking I was really going to leave her because of all that. As you can imagine, Megan and I never got along. I always felt she could not stand me, perhaps because of the idea that someone could actually like her sister. She would hurl insults, calling me a loser or stupid for being with someone like Jessica. To try to separate us, she refused to give us space if I wanted to spend time with Jessica at her house. So, Jessica and I started spending more and more time at my place. My mom always adored Jessica. She would joke with us, saying she always wanted a daughter but ended up with 2 sons. I did not mind sharing my mom with Jessica because I could see how much happier and more radiant she was at our house. Jessica started coming over more and more often and even having dinner with us. She became such a constant figure at my house that my brother treated her like his own sister. Moreover, my dad would bring home Jessica's favorite strawberry cheesecake whenever he could because Jessica loved the bakery near my dad's office. Sometimes, Jessica even spent the night. I guess that is when the real problem started. Lori scolded Jessica for spending all her time at my place and hurled insults at her for hanging out with me. Jessica's father had no problem with this, probably because he was already spending time with another woman at that point. Lori was determined to say I was a distraction in Jessica's life and ordered Jessica to break up with me. Jessica refused, and this led to a massive argument where Lori found our messages on Jessica's phone and smashed her phone in anger. She ruthlessly started destroying Jessica's room and threatened to take away her bedroom door. Megan only added fuel to the fire, saying Jessica was probably involved in an inappropriate relationship with me, and that is how girls get into trouble. Their argument got so intense that Jessica's father had to come pick her up. He helped her pack her clothes and books so she could move in with him. Meanwhile, Lori kept yelling inappropriate things at Jessica, traumatizing her even more. Once Jessica started living with her dad, I think things improved a bit. I would never say he was the best father, given his history with Megan, but maybe he had changed over the years because he was much more patient with Jessica. He even allowed us to see each other, but he was firm that she had to be home by 7 p.m. However, he had no issue with Jessica spending time at my house. My mom would even send desserts with Jessica to give to her dad, and that way, he got to know my family. When it was time for Jessica to go to college, Lori contacted Jessica, begging her to go to a state college nearby, so she could still see her. I pushed Jessica not to let her do that, and said that we needed to study at a good university and get as far away from her as possible. Fortunately, Jessica agreed, and we both got accepted into the same out-of-state university, and she even got a substantial scholarship. Now, college was much better for us. My parents visited us whenever they could, and Jessica's dad was in constant contact with her. Jessica started making new friends and opening up more. We could go out and attend parties with our friends without worrying about her mother calling or yelling at us. Obviously, Jessica and I continued to work hard and get good grades, but we were a bit freer. One time, during college, Lori came to visit Jessica. Jessica was stressed all day because she knew what was going to happen. I do not even know why Lori came to visit because all she did all day was make fun of Jessica's choice of major and her outfit, and comment on how Jessica seemed to have changed and was no longer the respectful daughter she had raised. Lori bragged the whole time about how Megan had finally met the perfect man for her and that they had recently gotten married. This was news to Jessica as she had no idea and was upset about not being invited, even though she and Megan had not spoken for a while. Lori compared Megan's guy to me and how he could provide everything for Megan, which was ridiculous given I was still in college. However, this affected Jessica a lot, and she was sad for days. I always felt Lori consciously put Jessica down so that she would keep fighting for her approval. Even though Jessica could have cut ties with her mother, she told me how much she missed her mom and wondered if things would improve between them in the future. In our junior year of college, Jessica and I were in a great relationship when we found out she was pregnant. She had been having morning sickness for a week and had missed her period. Once we put 2 and 2 together, we were beyond excited. I know that as college students, it was not the most ideal time, but I did not care since Jessica was always the love of my life. If things happened this way, I was ready to step up to my responsibilities and support her and our baby. We went to the ultrasounds together, and the doctor told us everything looked fine. Finally, I informed my parents, and they were both shocked and happy for us. My dad assured me I had nothing to worry about, and my mom said she would help Jessica and our baby as much as she could. The only problem was that Jessica had to tell her parents. I knew it would be a very difficult conversation since her mother would surely blame me and Jessica, but I encouraged Jessica to speak up because it was a necessary conversation before the baby arrived. Jessica decided to go home and talk to her parents alone. I begged her not to go alone and that I wanted to be there too because I feared for her safety, but Jessica assured me she had to face this alone. That weekend, Jessica went back to her dad's house, where she finally called her mom and asked to meet her. She had been texting me until she arrived at her dad's. Now, this is where things get confusing. For days after Jessica's supposed meeting at her dad's, she did not answer my calls or texts. I was sick with worry because I started imagining the worst. 2 weeks after endless calls and messages, Jessica called to tell me she was dropping out of college. I was stunned because that was not the news I expected at all. I asked her what happened and she told me how her mother was okay with her pregnancy, but insisted she be a good mother and take a break from the stress of college. She emphasized how the baby could be affected by her constant moving around on campus and that she could always re-enroll the following year. I reminded her of her scholarship, but Jessica told me her parents had discussed it and agreed to help her with tuition. She also told me she was afraid people would talk behind her back and judge her for getting pregnant. I told her if people judged her, they would judge me too, but I did not care because she was my girlfriend and we loved each other. However, Jessica refused to listen. All of this seemed very suspicious to me. I did not know what to think and begged her to come back so we could talk about it. I even said I wanted to drive back and meet her so we could discuss all our options. I reminded her how my parents were willing to help so she would not have to drop out. I assured her we would talk to the dean of students together. I do not know why, but I had a knot in my stomach because I feared my girlfriend was being manipulated. Jessica rejected all my offers of help and told me she was perfectly safe and doing fine. She assured me she would return to college very soon. Then I asked her what was going to happen with the baby, and she told me her mother would take care of the baby. I immediately objected. I told her she had no right to make a decision about the baby all by herself since I was the father. Jessica told me that, although her mother was tough on her sometimes, she was generally a good mother. I almost laughed hearing that and pointed out that she had spent most of her high school years at my house because she hated being at home and how her mother had almost caused a serious incident. This led to an argument where Jessica maintained I was being too hard on her mom and that I should show more compassion. I told her I could not force her to go back to college, but when it came to the baby, I did not want her mother anywhere near our child. Ultimately, Jessica assured me we would make that decision after the baby was born. Reluctantly, I agreed. Months went by while Jessica and I spoke on the phone whenever we could. I worked hard at college to get my degree, while Jessica went through her pregnancy completely alone. Throughout this time, Lori and Megan were exceptionally nice to her. That is what I heard from Jessica. She excitedly told me how her sister went with her to her ultrasounds and how her mom gave her foot massages when she felt tired. Meanwhile, I sometimes visited Jessica when I had a break from classes. Lori hated these visits and constantly held me responsible for Jessica's pregnancy, but I endured her scolding just to see my girlfriend. However, whenever I wanted to touch Jessica's belly or spend time talking to our child like any hopeful father would, Jessica encouraged me, but Lori and Megan would interrupt us. They told me it was weird and I should not be so involved. I asked them what they meant by that, but they ignored me. As the due date approached, Jessica told me how her mother and sister had convinced her to have a home birth with a doula present. I looked into it and told her a firm no, as I was afraid of everything that could go wrong. However, Jessica started insisting that she had met the doula and was really considering the idea of a home birth. Looking back, I regret not being able to stop her, but I guess life had other plans for us. The day Jessica gave birth, I was taking my final exams. My phone was on silent, and I was not allowed to check it during the test. When I finished, I found 8 missed calls from Jessica and her text saying she needed me right away. I called her, but no one answered. I called back, and that is when Megan answered the phone. I asked her what happened to Jessica and if she was okay. Megan assured me Jessica was fine, but that I needed to come over and would not give me any more details. I jumped in my car and drove for 5 hours straight to be there for Jessica. During the drive, I kept thinking the worst. When I arrived at her house, I ran in to see her. Lori and her ex-husband looked somber when they opened the door. I did not even care about them as I looked for Jessica and found her in her room. Jessica was curled up on her bed crying. Instinctively, I hugged her, desperately seeking an answer as to what happened to our child. However, Jessica kept crying, unable to find the words to explain. Overwhelmed by the suspense, I begged her to tell me the truth. Jessica finally took a deep breath and told me between sobs that our child had been stillborn. I felt like the ground was shaking beneath my feet, and I could feel my heart breaking. I started sobbing, and Jessica held me in her arms while I cried for hours on her lap. I kept asking her what happened, and she told me more about the supposed stillbirth. She went on to talk about the reactions of her doula, her mother, and her sister, but I felt like I could not comprehend anything. I felt like I was going to throw up, so I went to the bathroom. Later, I called my parents to come pick me up. They did not even know Jessica had given birth, so they rushed over. When they heard the news, they were just as devastated as I was. My mom held me while we both cried, and my dad hugged Jessica and assured her he would be there for her. I cannot even describe how painful those days were. I had never really been depressed or had thoughts of self-harm in my life, but I was very close to it at that time. The only positive thing was that Jessica and I still loved each other. We never left each other's side. Eventually, I had to return to college, and the following semester, Jessica went back to college as she had promised me. For a long time, I was afraid to be intimate with her again because the loss of our child continued to haunt me. Looking back, Jessica never reacted the same way I did. I mean, yes, she was crying when I first went to see her, but within a few days she was back to herself. At the time, I thought maybe it was her coping mechanism. She went out with friends, drank, or partied as if nothing bad had ever happened. She recovered quickly while I continued to feel devastated and uncomfortable, and my parents called me regularly. 3 months after the incident with Jessica, Megan informed us she had given birth. I was stunned because I had no idea she was even pregnant. I questioned Jessica, but she told me how Megan had gotten pregnant after her, but she forgot to tell me. This was very unusual for Jessica, since we had known each other since our teenage years and never had any secrets. During her pregnancy, she never mentioned Megan being pregnant, but Jessica kept reassuring me that the pregnancy had made her forgetful and that it happens to many women. Ultimately, although I was suspicious, I let it go. Now, 3 years have passed since Jessica and I graduated from college. Since I graduated before her, I found a job first, which allowed me to save money so we could move into our rented apartment. When she graduated, we both found excellent jobs and contributed equally to rent and bills. We felt secure and well-established, so I finally decided to propose to her this year. Everyone congratulated us. By then, the relationship between Lori and me had also improved, and she no longer mocked me. We were going to have a traditional church wedding. When we went to talk to our pastor about our vows, he insisted that couples should not have secrets and must be honest with each other before their wedding, otherwise it would be a sin and a betrayal. Since that day, I noticed Jessica was very nervous. She asked me if I had anything to confess to her, but I laughed because I had never hidden anything from her. When I asked her the same question, she got offended and asked how I could even suspect her and that I should have more trust in her if I was going to marry her. Her reaction surprised me because I thought we were joking around, but I decided not to push it. However, Jessica remained unusually quiet and distracted throughout the wedding planning. I know some brides can go overboard when it comes to wedding planning, but Jessica seemed completely indifferent. When my mom, all excited, wanted to go dress shopping with her, she told her she could pick out a dress for her because she had no preference. Jessica showed no interest in the guest list or the centerpieces. Fortunately, my parents stepped in and helped us organize everything. Jessica seemed completely checked out. I even asked her if she was having second thoughts, but then she got emotional and assured me she had no doubts about becoming my wife. On our wedding day, while my friends and I were celebrating during the reception and having fun, Jessica seemed strangely quiet. I saw her smiling and talking to guests, but it was not natural. Finally, I met Megan's daughter at the wedding, and her daughter had the exact same blue eyes as Megan and Jessica. I hugged her and almost teared up thinking about the loss of our child. Megan congratulated me and quickly took her daughter away to eat and meet other guests. During the celebration, I found Jessica arguing furiously with her mother in hushed tones, but they went silent when I approached her. I guess that is when the warning bells started going off in my head. A few weeks later, during the honeymoon, Jessica continued to look sad. I knew something was bothering her, and I could not take it anymore. I told her she had to tell me what was bothering her, but Jessica tried to dodge the question. I stood firm and refused to let her off the hook this time. I explained to her how suspicious her behavior had been over the past few weeks. I told her she could tell me anything, because if she did not, I could only think the worst. Jessica gave a dry laugh and told me I could not even imagine what she had done. Hearing that, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. I thought she might have cheated on me. I insisted she be honest with me, assuring her we could face anything together. Finally, Jessica took a deep breath and began to share her secret while crying softly. She confessed through her tears that she had lied to me all this time and that it was eating her up inside because she did not want our marriage to start on the wrong foot. I waited patiently while my mind raced, as she continued to say she knew I might not forgive her, but she had to tell me the truth. She told me that in fact, she had never lost our baby. My eyes widened in shock as she went on to say she gave our baby to her sister Megan because her family pressured her immensely. Apparently, Megan and her husband had been trying to have a baby, but Megan could not get pregnant because she was infertile. So when she found out Jessica was pregnant, she was excited and started telling Jessica she had to give her the baby, making her believe she was not ready to take care of a child at her young age. Lori, who had been against the idea of Jessica being pregnant, suddenly seemed on board with Megan's idea and pushed Jessica, saying it was the best solution for everyone. When Jessica said no, things got worse. Her mother and sister started screaming at her, calling her an idiot and selfish, saying Megan could give the child everything she never could, since she was still a broke college student. Megan pointed out that it did not matter who raised the child, since the child would be part of the family anyway, and Jessica could still love the child as an aunt. Jessica kept refusing and even thought about running away, but they took her phone, making her feel trapped. Even her father got involved and threatened to kick her out while she was still pregnant. Her mother kept saying that giving the baby to Megan was not a big deal and she should do it for her infertile sister. She assured her this would make them love her even more. I sat there in stunned silence as Jessica kept trying to explain and justify her actions. I felt like I was in a fog and suddenly disgusted by her. I just walked out of the room because I could not bear to be near her. As I write this, I am shaking with anger, while my wife keeps calling me desperately. I do not want to talk to her because I am so furious about what she did. She gave my daughter to her infertile sister and hid this fact for so long. I cannot believe I met my daughter at the wedding and Megan acted like she was her own. I will make sure my wife, her sister, and her whole family pay for what they did. However, just a few days ago, I took my wedding vows and I was raised thinking I should never abandon my family and that anything can always be worked out. So, am I in the wrong if I leave my wife and pursue this legally? If I can get my daughter back, will my wife be in legal trouble? I do not know what to think. I feel numb. Please help me. Update 1. I am overwhelmed by the thousands of comments on my post. Strangers have reached out to ask if this is true and offer their condolences. I regret to say it is true and I am an absolute fool who was deceived by my wife and her family. How could I have been so stupid? I have read all your comments, and believe me, I blame myself more than you can blame me. I cried for hours and hours. My daughter is 4 years old and has lived a lie just like me. After posting this, I went back to my room and packed all my things so I could go home. Jessica kept begging me not to leave her, even getting down on her knees, but I had already made up my mind. I do not know how, but all the love and adoration I felt for her over the years seemed to have evaporated. I felt disgusted and betrayed. Currently, I am at my parents' house, and they are just as shocked as I am to hear the news. My parents are ready to confront Jessica's parents. I am going to contact a lawyer who can help me through all of this. Let me gather my thoughts and explore all my options. Update 2. It has been 2 months since my last update. I know it has been a while, but going to court every day has kept me busy. First of all, to answer several questions. No, I am no longer married to Jessica. My lawyer helped us get the marriage annulled on the grounds of fraud, as I explained to the judge how the marriage was based on a fundamental lie. The judge was shocked and asked if he heard correctly. Anyone who hears my story is stunned and asks me to repeat it because nobody can believe a mother could be so cruel. Jessica, for her part, has continued to play the role of the grieving ex-wife. Many of you told me that if Jessica really wanted to, she could have fought for custody of the baby a long time ago. However, she continued to stay silent and let me suffer, thinking we had lost our daughter. Clearly, she valued her sister and her mother more than me. It does not bother me that she loves them, but she had the audacity to give my daughter away and made me believe she was gone. I go to court every day with my lawyer to try to prove this legally. The first thing the judge ordered was a paternity test to verify if I was really the father. Megan's lawyer vigorously fought this decision, but had to concede when the court order was issued. The test confirmed I was indeed the little girl's father. There was a huge uproar in the courtroom. I wanted to confront Megan while she and Lori cried silently, as if they were the victims. Jessica remained in the courtroom, looking devastated. The judge ordered a full investigation into the circumstances surrounding the child's placement with Megan. Now that it has been proven that I am the father, my lawyer told me that Jessica's actions were not only emotionally distressing, but also legally questionable, and that she could end up in prison. Honestly, I hope she faces consequences because, as a father, I do not want other men to experience this nightmare. No parent has the right to give away their child, and I hope my case serves as an example to anyone thinking of doing this. Update 3. Sorry for the delayed update. I know it has been 6 months since my last update, but I could not do it while the legal custody proceedings were still ongoing. In the weeks that followed, the legal proceedings took a significant turn. Testimonies were heard, documents were presented, and the truth began to emerge. It was revealed that Jessica had been coerced and pressured by her family, especially her mother and sister, to give our daughter to Megan. Megan's lawyer, trying to defend their actions, argued that they genuinely believed Jessica was not ready to be a mother and that giving the baby to Megan was in the best interest of the child. They also argued that the child should not be moved from her home and that it would be best for Megan to remain her mother. However, the judge was not convinced and emphasized the importance of respecting the rights of both biological parents. Based on the evidence presented and the judge's decision to prioritize the best interests of the child, I was granted full legal and physical custody, and legal action was initiated against Megan and Jessica. The court found grounds to press charges for coercion, manipulation, and possible violations of family and child protection laws. As a result, both Megan and Jessica were arrested. The charges include actions causing severe emotional distress, coercing a parent to relinquish a child, and potential violations of parental rights. The court also ordered Lori and Jessica's father to undergo mandatory family counseling because they encouraged their daughter to do this. Although it was Megan who truly conceived and executed the plan, Megan's husband was unaware of the coercion and manipulation orchestrated by Megan and Jessica, and he thought Jessica simply did not want her daughter. I genuinely felt sorry for him when he broke down upon having to part with my daughter. Due to his limited involvement, the legal consequences for him are restricted to a heavy fine and community service. The judge issued a restraining order against the entire family, warning them to stay away from me and my daughter, otherwise their next legal consequences would be much worse. When the decision was handed down, tears of joy streamed down my face. I could not believe I finally got custody of my daughter. The justice system had worked and held Jessica and Megan accountable. Lori screamed and cried seeing her 2 daughters handcuffed and let out of the courtroom. I truly felt a pang of sorrow seeing Jessica's face and the regret on it, but I reminded myself that she was no longer the woman I had fallen in love with. Furthermore, all the years of lies and the time stolen from me with my daughter were unforgivable. Since the court's decision, my daughter, whose name is Clare, lives with me and my parents. A social worker from Child Protective Services came to drop her off and informed us they would continue to visit us for a few months until they were sure Clare felt comfortable living with us. I'm not going to lie, but I cried and hugged my daughter for hours while she looked confused. Later, my parents showed Clare her new room, and she jumped for joy on her new bed. For a few days, I could not even believe my daughter was alive and that I finally had her after months of court battles. It was very hard, all those months waiting for the court to rule in my favor. Knowing my daughter was alive and with other people was agonizing. Every time I see her, I just want to hug her and never let her go. The first few weeks were difficult with Claire because she missed the woman she knew as her mom. But we started therapy where I gently showed her photos of Jessica and me while she was pregnant, and I explained to her that I was truly her father and how they had separated us. It took Claire some time to process the news, but the therapist assured us she would eventually get used to us, and we needed to give her time. We take her to the park every weekend, play, draw, and spend quality time together. Slowly, I see Claire opening up, her laughter becoming more frequent and her trust in me growing. The social worker visits have been positive, and with each visit, it is confirmed that Claire is adapting well to her new environment. The initial confusion and sadness are gradually giving way to the joy of making new memories together. My parents have been incredible pillars of support, providing love and stability to Claire during this transition period. As we navigate this confusing journey together, I am grateful for the support I have received from so many people since my first post. The wounds of the past are slowly healing, and I would like to move forward in my life. Update 4. It has been a few months since the last update, but I came back because I wanted to share how these last few months have been for Claire and how Megan's and Jessica's lives have been after the court events. First of all, Claire is thriving in her new environment. Over time, her confidence and joy continue to grow. She now feels completely at home with us and is full of energy and enthusiasm. We have established a solid family routine that includes fun activities, playtime, and plenty of affectionate and loving moments. I am also thinking about finding my own house to move into with her, but close to my parents, as they are a very important source of support. Moreover, Claire has become very attached to them. Claire has proven to be an amazing child. I thought it would take her much longer to adapt, but that is not the case. She has formed a strong bond with me and my parents and brought us a lot of happiness after some dark years. As for Megan and Jessica, their lives took a completely different turn. After facing legal charges and the consequences of their actions, both showed remorse. Megan was sentenced to serve time in prison, while Jessica received a shorter sentence and is now on probation. During her time in prison, Megan had the opportunity to reflect on her actions and the harm caused to her family and me. She committed to seeking help and working on her rehabilitation to become a better person by taking responsibility for her actions. While this is not something I have or am ready to believe, I also know that her husband filed for divorce. For her part, Jessica is receiving therapy and emotional support to help her cope with the trauma and remorse she feels for her role in all this. She is working hard to rebuild her life and repair the broken relationships. However, this is not something I am really looking for because what I felt for Jessica is gone, and I also do not want her near my daughter whom she gave away. Still, I hope at least Jessica can find peace, but far away from us. Meanwhile, my main focus remains Claire and her well-being. I am committed to offering her love and stability, something she would not have had in that family given how Jessica and Megan were raised. Getting her out of that family was the best thing that could happen. I believe this will be my last update. Comment. Reading about this experience reminds me how deeply our environment shapes our choices. It is crucial to recognize when the people closest to us cross boundaries that should never be breached. We all deserve relationships built on honesty and mutual respect. Walking away from a toxic situation is incredibly hard, but sometimes it is the only way to protect your peace. Healing begins the moment you prioritize your well-being over the expectations of others. Taking responsibility for our lives means stepping up to do what is right, even when it feels terrifying. I hope you always find the courage to surround yourself with kindness and genuine support. Never let anyone convince you to accept mistreatment simply because they are family. Please take care of yourselves and hold on to the people who truly value you. I would love to read your thoughts in the comments below on how you set healthy boundaries in your own lives. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.